Welcome to the TheEatingCast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Vincent, and today we have a guest, TJ from the Philippines. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. Oh, no problem. I'm so glad we're so happy to have you on. It's definitely a pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, who are you? What brings you here? But before that, actually, I totally forgot about this. Hang on. I forgot. We gotta introduce the food. Give me a sec.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So I'm having bulgogi and white rice. Just super basic.
Okay.
Threw it all in the pan.
Okay. What you got there, TJ?
I have sisig, pork sisig, with also rice and an egg.
Okay. Nice.
And water.
That's yummy. Good stuff.
That's like street food, right?
Yeah. Alright, yeah, I just got it from this place near my apartment called Best Friends Cafe. It's like a
That's dope.
stall in the
Okay. Well, I just quickly whipped up some oatmeal with some blueberries, cranberries, and almonds. That's all I got today. A little healthy,
That's
but
healthy as hell.
it's also breakfast. And
We're all here getting like fat and shit. And he's just like, I'm here having an oatmeal.
a little bit. Yeah, kinda. But
Oatmeal's really good. That's really good.
yeah, I love oatmeal, man. That's one of my favorite
the
things.
American version of chok kanji.
Kinda. Well, actually, yeah, I would say it is. Just because it's still a grain, oats, and then you got rice, which is also a grain. Just making it into like a little porridge, and you're eating it. So yeah, actually, it's pretty similar. It's just oatmeal is predominantly served for breakfast. Congee can be served any time of the day. Yeah, and usually has a lot more flavorful or savory ingredients.
Right. Okay. So TJ, let's go back to the topic. So what brings you here? So we know that you're a filmmaker and you kind of go back and forth, Chicago and the Philippines, correct?
Actually, this is my first time moving here proper.
Okay.
So I haven't. I've come back here for family, to see family, and with family. But this is the first time living here. I grew up mostly in Chicago, born and raised there, Westmont, outside of Chicago.
Okay.
But yeah, this is actually my first time for what might be a long time. Not quite sure yet.
Okay. So what made you move to the Philippines in order to I know you're a filmmaker and everything like that, but what drove you to kind of like go to the Philippines to kind of pursue this passion?
Yeah, I think for a while, like I wanted to find some kind of opportunity to spend a long time here. Just to get to know where my parents are from and kind of. But I think things lined up, and actually very similar to I guess why we're putting on this film festival as well. I think there's been a lot, especially in the last 20 or so years. There's been a lot of new energy, new voices coming out of the Philippines and Southeast Asia in general. And I don't know, I wanted to be part of that, or to learn more from a lot of these filmmakers. And I think very broadly, that's what brought me here.
Yeah.
Okay.
How'd you get into filmmaking, actually?
So it actually, it was never really an idea until college. So in college, I liked making flyers and making videos for different clubs that my friends were in, and then I was a part of. And yeah, I had a camcorder back then. And, eventually, got a DSLR, and yeah, I just like doing that. I like making videos. And then I eventually just started doing it more. I ended up even interning at a production company, and tried to make a music video, like really random things.
Yeah.
And I think I just started getting interested in movies during that time. I think I took a few classes as well, in different departments. And I think when it came time, when I was finishing my undergraduate, I kind of wanted to find a space where I could pursue this further, explore different ideas, experiment. Yeah, and then I applied to film school right after.
Gotcha. Was it hard to get started?
I mean, just in any kind of endeavor, there's always the usual heavy doubts of anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's particular to like my experience or anything like that, but I don't know. I mean, most of it was just like self-doubt. It was just like, oh, this is very weird to do.
Yeah.
Very not secure to do.
Yeah. Well, I feel like most artists are like that. Like they're their worst critic. Right?
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah. That's true. A lot of the people pursuing art I know are also... I don't know, I guess it's just like, it's very... I don't know why that is. I don't know. Do you have any ideas on like why that is?
Well, I think, in my opinion, I mean, in a sense, this podcasting is kind of a form of art too. And I think what it is we're just never satisfied with your own work. Even though if someone tells you like you're doing a great job, you are your own worst critic. And so it's like hard to say, it's hard to like hype yourself up, And I think part of it too is most artists that I've come across are humble. So like, coming across as, oh yeah, I do the best work, like that never is the case, because I feel like that kind of just like sets you up for failure. I mean, not to say that failure is bad, but like you're overhyping yourself, you're coming off like too cocky, and I feel like sometimes that narrows your mindset, and you're not too open to like learn from your mistakes, I guess, or like learn from what other people are trying to tell you. And I feel like you're creating your own brick wall. You think you like made the best shit, and then you hit that wall. It's like, where do we go from now?
Yeah.
That's
and I think, I mean, it also depends on like why people do what they're doing, or what they're looking to do with it, because that also depends too. I think like there might be reasons why people are, I guess, in that case, like very proud of what they've done. Like I don't know. Yeah, it's
But it's okay to be proud of what you created, though. Like that's another thing. So that's why it's hard to like, as an artist too. It's hard to balance that. Like, when can I be proud? When can I not be too proud?
Yeah.
But I guess at the end of the day, yeah.
But I also feel like it's kind of like it's. You're perfecting your craft, right? So whatever it may be, right? Whether it's cinematography, filming, being a doctor or being a lawyer or whatever, or even being a podcaster like us, right? It's like, you can be happy about your work, right? But obviously we're going to be our worst critic, And at the same time, it's like, it's the fact that we're being our worst critic that our best works are actually being made, believe it or not.
Yeah.
In that case, our best critic.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yes.
But yeah, so TJ, like, kind of going back to like how you're from Westmont and everything like that, and kind of
Do you know where that is?
Vaguely. It's like vaguely. I just know it's west of like Chicago.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like when you pursued this film, like you're pursuing your passion, right?
Yeah.
What was your support system like? Like, did your parents support you wholeheartedly, or did they have any like backlash?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I think I'm very lucky in that. It's very hard, especially, I don't know how to explain. Like, they're definitely supportive, I would say that, but it's very, it's hard to explain these kinds of things. Like, even me myself, like, what does that even mean? Like, to be a filmmaker. And like, I don't even know. And so like to have to explain that to your parents or family or even friends, like, it's just kind of like an awkward conversation. But I would say like, they were, I'm lucky to say that like they were supportive, but obviously there's like, I feel like there's kind of unsaid tangibles that need to be delivered.
Yeah.
So like, you know, like schooling, for deciding to go to a master's program feels like something that's tangible enough. So I think that's where like it kind of works. But you know, maybe if I went a different way where I didn't pursue that and you know, do what a lot of folks are doing, where you know, yeah, you just, it's like DIY. You just try to that would be a different story, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they, but yeah, I mean, it's just like in terms of, I don't know how to explain. They weren't like resistant to it, but obviously they were just confused. They were just confused.
Yeah, they're like,
Which like I would be.
yeah, I agree. It's like kind of like you're their son, they want to support you and all they can, but they just don't understand like why you're doing this and not like a more safe or quote unquote safe career, right?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, and that's even something I'm thinking about constantly. Like, why am I still doing this? But yeah, it's like I think it's definitely coming out of they're coming out of a different generation, a different world, different expectations, and that's where conversations need to be had about like, yeah, what is it? It's a whole different thing that like I wouldn't expect them to fully understand immediately, especially in the kind of world that they came up in, and why they came to the U.S. and first, these kinds of things.
Yeah. Like
so yeah, it's just like an ongoing conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had different conversations with other like guests as well, right? In regards to some parents like supporting some parents supporting them and some others not. And also from that standpoint, right, it's like the fact that they're coming from a generation where it's like they escaped like struggle, they escaped struggle, poverty, war-torn countries, to America at the time, right, for a better life, quote, air quotes, better life.
Right.
And when they do that, it's all they're doing is like they're just working their butt off, right, to kind of make a living and kind of get that American dream that they're looking for, right? They want to be able to support their children, give their children like a better chance at survival, and their children being us. And when that happens, it's like, oh wow, our parents, they really, when you think about it, like through their lens, it's like they do everything they can to just kind of like support us. Yeah. Right. Because they sacrifice their own childhood, their own growth, right? Their own emotional and like creative growth to create a family and give all that to us.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's definitely like I'm definitely very lucky because I feel like even most for those who are able to have this kind of family who are able to pursue and be able to cover, that even that in itself is like a kind of a I think still like an exceptional type of situation. So yeah, it's like it's kind of wild to think about. This is something I'll never be able to put my shoes in or imagine.
Exactly.
Which is, I definitely think about that a lot, especially when I'm pursuing like creative projects. And like the weight, there's a kind of weight to it. Like imagining that, maybe a generation ago I wouldn't be able to, and then so it gives like making art a whole different meaning for me.
Well, speaking of your projects, is what kind of story are you trying to tell?
Oh gosh, what kind of story am I trying to tell? I'm really interested in families.
Okay.
I'm really interested in Filipino families.
Okay.
I probably will never stop being interested in Filipino families. I don't know. Like, I guess I'm just really. That's hard because I'm really actually right now I'm in the process of figuring this out. But I think like, the kind of stories I want to tell, like there's, I don't know if that's very like Asian to say, but like there's a lot of drama and meaning and layers that happen. And like it's very ripe territory for filmmaking.
Yeah.
I think. Actually,
Well, I
you
guess-
can say that for anybody. It's not really,
Yeah. Well, I guess a better question would be like, where are you drawing your inspirations from?
Oh, okay. Inspirations from. I think, given that, I mean, like a lot of the films that I want to make in the future are going to be about Filipino families in Chicago in particular. So I think I'm just inspired by my community, to put it simply, and like all the complexities and like trials and just there's so much to think through and feel about. I mean, I don't know. It's just, and again, maybe it's part of this kind of ongoing search for. Sometimes there's just things that irk you all the time, and like you just think about these things. I think like this is the I grew up I grew up in a Filipino household, and this is just the kind of world that I know, and I think it's important to kind of explore these things and tell these stories, even if they might be difficult to hear. Yeah, I don't know if that makes. I don't know if I'm really answering your question.
No, you are.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It's like it's definitely a different focal point, right? Like basically trying to dive into pretty much not really like a generic, but like a Filipino family mindset, right? It's like you want to see the struggles of everyone, right? Like granted, family to families will be different. Everyone have their own struggles, their own drama, their own family drama.
Yeah.
But they all share like commonalities, like even across the board, right? Not just specifically like Filipino families, but like any family in general has like that silver lining of like love, right? Regardless of like any type of hatred or like anger that everyone holds in the family, right? Like, oh, you did this, I'm gonna hate you forever, type of thing. But then at the same time, they still love you, regardless,
Yeah, there's different nuances.
Yeah.
People express their love differently. Yes.
Yeah, I know my dad, for one, he expresses love by just giving me a call every night and saying, "What do you want to eat?"
Aww.
That's pretty much it. But
Yeah,
it's like to like the stranger next door, right? They're probably like, "Oh, you just asking what you want to eat," but it's like for him, my dad, it's like that's him showing his care, right?
Yeah, that's our hidden meaning in the Asian culture.
It's so weird. It's really weird and hard to explain, but that's just how it is.
Yeah. Where's your dad from, or where are you?
My parents are from southern China, right? So
okay.
Guangdong province.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so really close to the Philippines. Just a little quick boat ride.
Yeah.
No, that's actually really far for those that don't know.
That's
but
what kind of boat, I guess.
Yeah.
Speedboat.
Speedboat, it'll still take a while.
Yeah, right. So TJ, going back to the inspiration, like what inspires you, what would you say what would you do? How do you stay fresh when you feel like you've been creatively sapped or like your inspiration's waning away? Like, what kind of things do you do or go about?
Yeah, I mean, this is so kind of. I feel like I'm a very stereotypical person. now that like we're having this conversation, but like I really I like watching movies a lot. So I just watch. Actually, I just watch the same movie. I'm having this problem now where it's hard for me to branch out because like I'm still learning new things from the same movies that I've been watching for probably like the last 7 years. But yeah, that's just it. Like I watch movies, I take walks, talk with friends, hang out. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of just, I guess, live life, and then it's not. Yeah, it's also because I haven't really. It's been a while since I've just been thinking about films or making films, so I'm actually jumping back into that.
Yeah, that's a good
usually
thing.
that's it.
Yeah, art is. You're right though, because like it is hard for some people to do that, but like being able to even like walking away from projects sometimes, not like completely, but just like taking,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know, being at arm's distance, distancing yourself, just trying something new, like, you know, putting it down a back burner for a little bit, because
Yeah.
I feel like that's
So
very
important.
healthy for you. Yeah, it's very healthy. And when you come back to it, you're gonna be like, oh shit, I didn't see this. Like, oh, now I can add this from my other thing. And it just, these are the kind of risks we take to grow and develop.
Yeah.
And it's in a healthy way too. So,
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so important. I think take breaks in general.
mm, so right now, I didn't ask you in the beginning, but
Yeah.
as a filmmaker, are you working by yourself or do you have a team?
I mean, I guess I've collaborated with people, and like my friends, and so it's not like I don't have like a staff that like follows me around or something. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think for the things I've done, I've always had crew or people I collaborated with. Because it's also I guess the kind of filmmaking I'm interested is quite yeah, also generic where you have a crew, you have like kind of specific roles, but yeah, the ways in which I collaborate it's always been like with friends or things like that. But I think yeah, I mean in terms of like writing and directing, those have always been kind of solo. But of course, you're always working with it, so it's always collaborative so far in my experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did make I don't know the last thing I did was like a banner. I tried painting.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like kind of solo, and I tried to work with my friend, but then we like couldn't figure things out. And it was like okay, like I don't know, it was funny because I had no idea how to paint, so I was like asking for help. I was just like totally like useless, like I didn't even know how to think about this. So yeah, but yeah, I guess in terms of filmmaking, I've always worked just mainly out of. Uh, Actually, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really. I am not actually that experienced to be honest, so I can't really speak on what works for me or anything. But I don't know if that answers. So I've always like the film production always team, but like writing and directing scripts is always solo more or less. But I ask my friends for opinion, so
Right.
yeah, it's always collaborative.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie The Farewell by any chance?
I have.
Or Crazy Rich Asians?
That was it was showing in Chicago. I think the director was there.
Was he? What? No way.
Oh, wait, the farewell. Yeah, it was at the music box.
Who was the
Oh,
director?
yeah,
From? I was there at the screening. I didn't even see the director.
I think yeah, because she was she was being interviewed. She was on screen. She was on the stage.
That's awesome, dude.
It might have been before the I can't remember. Wait, I can't remember.
Oh wait, which screening? Because I went to the one downtown.
This was not. It's at the Music Box Theater, so I think that's not downtown.
Oh, okay, so she went somewhere else.
So the director was because there's like a Q&A afterwards.
It was Lulu Wang, right?
I think so. I can't remember.
Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I asked that because like, we're starting to see these kinds of stories, like erupt more, in terms of like Asian storytelling.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you, I guess, I don't want to say like protect your work, but I guess like we often hear, oh, the lack of original stories in the world, like we've seen it before. How do you stay fresh in the face of like the idea like that?
The idea that what, sorry?
Like how people say, oh, we've seen that before, just like, because
Oh.
because I'm starting to see the trend of people, for films like really portraying what Asian family households are like different cultures, different meanings behind words.
Uh-huh.
How do you, I guess, try to stay unique?
Yeah. I guess to be honest, that's not really something I think about.
Mhm.
Just because. Actually, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's just not something because like everyone's story is unique by default, anyways. And I think like if like for someone to say, "Oh, we've seen that before," I don't know. Like it doesn't really matter that much. Especially because I don't know. Were you referring to the farewell in particular? Were you that about the?
Or no, just like, well, Crazy Rich Asian too, because like they had that kind of
Right.
that small concept of the Asian mom, or like
Well,
not really speaking for yourself kind of thing.
I feel like the general topic, right? Like if you were to really break it down, like if we were to think of Crazy Rich Asians, right? Stereotypical, like, tiger mom wanting the best for their son, right? And will do anything and everything to do that. And then you have the potential future daughter-in-law struggling and fighting back to prove her worth in front of her eyes. If you just give that statement to any like director or any like film crew or any like artist, they'll be able to create something that's uniquely different from everyone else. Though the underlying topic will still be the same, the outcome and how the story is told will be different across the board, just because everyone has a different like perspective, right? Everyone grew up differently. Everyone had their own struggles within their own families.
Yeah.
So that will always be portrayed differently, no matter what, which will technically make every single movie, right? If you give these directors the freedom to kind of like all come together and like do like a challenge or something like that, right? To make a movie where you have, like 10 directors to make 10 different movies with the same underlying topic.
Right.
It'll be unique. They'll all be unique in their own way. So I don't think there's really like a loss of creativity or like really kind of that idea of, oh, we're stuck on like one template and one template only,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
agree
think
with
like
that.
there's like because there's always if you're no, this is like, I mean, this is an interesting point to bring up, just because if you're working and looking through things through types, and like that's on both sides of the camera, the people watching the movies and the people making the movies, and it kind of leaves little room for trying to understand the characters of the people in their particular situation. So maybe that there is like certain trends either in the culture or in the films itself. Maybe it's entirely constructed.
Yeah.
That like might allow these things to resemble one another, but I think at least for me, like I try to look at films on their own merit, even if there's kind of like some similarities. And also just the fact that we're talking about these are the two there's only two these are the two, I guess, major films that feature, and again, like East Asian characters. Like there's still a long way to go, and I think there's still a lot of room for people to make new narratives. I don't think there's a surplus yet of Asian stories, just because even that term itself, and that's something we're trying to do with this festival. Like, what does it mean to be an Asian film? I don't think that's easily at all categorized. Does that make sense?
Right.
That makes sense.
Are we able to?
Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, are we able to talk about that one film you made that you shared with us, or no?
Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Okay.
It's like 2 years old already.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, for those that are unaware, TJ made a short film roughly 2 years ago following a Filipino family, I'm assuming? Correct?
Yes.
And the title is called Clouded.
Yes.
So, can you give us a little background on why you chose that title, or like the meaning behind it, and why specifically you chose to kind of portray that kind of that family?
Yeah. It was also a very, very interesting perspective, if you can talk about that too, like from the lens view.
Yeah, I'm very curious what you all think of it too. But yeah, I guess I can talk. Okay, so the title came. So I'll say the Filipino title. It's Diliman. And actually, even the translation is kind of. I chose this title just because it's actually very interesting to try to translate. My uncle-in-law told me about this place called Diliman, which is where the University of the Philippines has their campus. And he told me that the reason why they called that campus Diliman is because it was in a forest, and still is a forest. It was very hard to see through the woods, and it was like murky, it's clouded, it was hard to see through, so that's why they called it Diliman. And I found this very interesting because this word, when you say like madilim, it means more like dim. Like it doesn't necessarily mean like cloud. I mean, it could mean clouded, but it's more like the difficulty in seeing something, like murkiness, shroudedness. And I was really interested in this idea, and like this is kind of what I was trying to do with this family, where um, nobody knows what's going on. Like even us as the audience, I want us to like kind of all be equal, like with the characters. Where these characters don't know what's going on with each other. Like we don't know what they're going through. Like we don't know what's going to happen next. And there's this general sense of like not knowing where you're going, but you're kind of forced to move forward. And like I guess these are kind of just ideas I'm generally interested in about immigrant families.
Okay, so when I watched it, I got a sense of just complete disarray, right?
Perfect.
Like,
Yeah.
everyone was struggling. Like, so in the first scene, right? You got the. I'm not sure. I don't want to spoil it for anyone that wants to watch or anything like that. But like, it's just, it's really crazy to me, right? It's like just kind of watching that, and the first scene, right? You know the scene because you made it, but it's the daughter in the car, the grandmother, and then the mother. And from what I'm assuming, they're getting ready to go to a wedding or something like that, from the way they were being dressed and everything. And it just shows that like when the mother was going to the restaurant owner, right, to pay for the food and everything like that, it goes to show that for me, right, like your parents or anything like that, like will go above and beyond and give you their offspring, right, anything and everything they can just to make sure you're happy. That's what I saw from that, at least.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm really glad you read that into it. Because that was definitely, and there's nothing, it's all, I don't know if there's anything that so I'm really, I think.
Yeah, so that part really got me. And then everything else was just like, you just see them going to the venue, and then it's just like complete disarray. It's like, oh my god, what's going on? You stop right here. The bellboy is just telling you to go around. Everyone's just pulling stuff out of the car. You're like, what's going on? No one's talking to each other. It's like, what?
Not gonna lie, it was kind of nostalgic too, because like in the face of organized chaos, if you will, it's like it reminded me when I was younger and we would go to these big family like parties or gatherings. Everyone would be like yelling at each other, like, "Oh, you're not doing this!" Like, it's just because everyone's frustrated. And then like towards the end, when we get everything together, we take a one quick breather, and then it's all love again.
Yeah, tough love.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also why I don't like doing, personally, I don't like doing big family gatherings, because it is a headache. And there can be miscommunication brought across the board, and I just don't like that.
Yeah.
Like when one uncle is saying like, "Oh, you're doing this wrong. You should do it this way," and then in reality, you're doing it in a more efficient way. They're telling you to do it a certain way because that's how they did it for like X amount of years, and they think it's the right way. It's like there's more than one way around the block.
Yeah. It's all relative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that you find it nostalgic.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
But yeah, so like, what was your like influence for, I guess, that one? Like, did it have any like personal influence, or was it like just kind of off the top of your head, like, oh, it'd be cool to kind of like follow a family around and do this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely like a couple of films and like filmmakers I was cycling through, trying to come up with like the style, which we could get into nitty gritty about that, but also it might be boring. But I think I don't know. I was always interested in these kinds of in between spaces. So I think that was like the original idea. Like I wanted to create a portrait of a family in between the ceremony and reception. So it was just this very tight space where we would get glimpses of everybody, and that was always like what I wanted to do with this. And kind of going forward, like I'm really interested in these moments where people are stuck.
So you're more like interested in how would you say it? It's like you're interested in like finding the chaos within beauty.
You switched it, I think.
No. Because like the beauty is like the whole marriage, right, and the whole reception and everything like that, right? But what a lot of people don't see, right? If, like if you're a spectator, right, you don't see the back end, you don't see the struggle, you don't see the hard work and everything that's going on. So it's kind of like that. At least that's how what I'm getting out of that.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, it's always interesting, this conversation, like this balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or this dichotomy of chaos and beauty. And I don't know, I sometimes I think they're not quite separate. And even like when I was making this, I don't know, there was a filmmaker, actually, there's a very good quote. I think it was Kelly Reichardt, this American filmmaker, where she said like something like beauty doesn't sit too far from like madness or like chaos or something like that. And I don't know, I guess for me it wasn't my intention to like necessarily think of it like that. I just know that there's a certain vulnerability and like fragility that comes in these kinds of tight moments. And I don't know if that necessarily means beauty or if it means we're looking at a different kind of perspective on something that you wouldn't find in another kind of setting. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes sense. That's actually really deep. Like in terms of like just trying to find like, it's like looking at a rock, right, and trying to find a meaning behind it, more or less.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like my brain is like really freaking weird, so I see different things. Like it's oh, how did that rock get there? How big was it before? You know, like what was its journey, right? Like
that would be an interesting film, actually.
Yeah, I'm into
that. If you could figure out how to make that happen, dude, I would actually watch that.
Yeah.
The journey of a rock, which once was a mountain.
The journey of a rock.
It's like that SpongeBob episode where they like ride a rock.
Oh my god.
Places.
Didn't they?
Actually, they kind of did it already. Like that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh yeah, that's true. Damn, dude. See, people are a step ahead of us already.
A little bit. But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. Definitely a wild. So we know the name, and we know that it's been out for 2 years, and we know you had in the last 2 years of you completing the actual film, you've had how many screenings again? Was it 14? 16?
I don't know. You're gonna make me count. I don't know.
sorry. You had a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, like I played, but it was kind of like spread out. So.
Yeah.
What are any like things that people said during the screenings that that piqued your interest? Like anything? Yeah.
I think one of the most interesting comments I got was from a friend actually, and she thought, without knowing anything about the movie, she thought that the person Rianne in the beginning was like the family was marrying her off to someone, and that's what this whole thing is about. And I thought, I never would have thought that reading, but that's what she was thinking this whole time, and which like I'm thinking about, wow, like there's like pressure and like I don't know. Yeah, that was the most interesting comment.
That is really interesting.
The character in the beginning was the bride, actually.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, I don't think it. I hope the film doesn't give off that, but that was like the most interesting comment, I think.
That's actually really interesting.
Is it though? I don't know.
Well, so everyone listening now, if you ever do get a chance to watch Clouded, it's not about marrying off the daughter.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I mean, like, gosh, I have to think now about the content. No, like, I think people, like, there's some confusing things. Who's driving in the end. And I think the comment that that really speaks the most to me is that sometimes some people say, and who are like not Filipino, I say like, oh wow, like, I can really relate. Like my family's like that too. I'm like, okay, cool. I think that's my favorite thing. Like when people have said that.
I mean, that's really generic, but at the same time, it's like it's true though, right? Like a lot of when you think about it, this is kind of like one of our things. It's like why we do the podcast. It's to be able to connect everyone, right? Because everyone's got a story. Everyone's got a unique story to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But within that unique story, right, there's still underlying features that are similar, right, identical, more or less, that everyone can relate to. Whether it's just fights with their family but they still love them, fights with their family and they hate them, or even like just mental problems or like mental illness, or even just struggling to pursue their passion, right? Because they don't have anyone supporting them, right? Everyone's just beating them down and saying like, oh, you should just do a safe job. You should just be a doctor. You should just be a lawyer. You should just be an accountant or whatever. It's like everyone shares a resemblance of this story.
Right.
And it can relate across the board, which is why I feel like the way you actually film this is actually amazing, because it actually is like a clean slate for the viewer to interpret however they feel.
Cool. Okay, cool. I'm glad that feel that way.
I mean, I definitely felt that way.
Yeah.
That's how I felt, at least. If there are naysayers, by all means, just let me know, and I'll be like, we'll have a little talk about it. I won't deny your stuff. Everyone has the right to their own, their own views for the most part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, like, what advice would you give? I know, like, you're still early in your experiences as well, but like, what advice would you give to, I guess, young upcoming filmmakers as well, writers, storytellers, etc.?
A lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking of what I would like. Don't think too hard. Trust yourself. I mean, these are kind of like important cliches to keep by. Just because, I mean, especially if people's stories need to be heard, and if there's things that are stifling you, whether it's internal or external. Always, just don't forget to trust and listen to yourself, especially when it comes to film. I'm gonna say that, filmmaking in particular, because you're dealing with so many things, like people's voices, how people look, stories. Like there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of weight to it, and you have to be. Okay, I guess you don't have to be, but like, I was gonna say like honestly, there's stuff, but I think just trust yourself. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Is that the kind of philosophy you go about life as well, just like your day to day?
I mean, it's something I try to tell myself. I'm probably being hypocritical right now as I say this. No, I mean, because I think these kinds of things definitely come up when I'm forced to ask myself, why am I doing something? And then, those are kind of important questions, especially when you're making creative decisions or when you're in production, applying for funds. When you get to nitty gritty, like that kind of stuff within filmmaking, you have to ask yourself these questions, like, why am I doing this now? And like, why is this important? Why is it made? And then that's where you kind of have to, I mean, at least for myself, like really process existential questions of like, why is it important for this character to exist? And for me to get to that point, I have to like really be honest and open with myself and to try. And like that might not feel comfortable. And so, I think that's why I'm veering off of the question a bit.
Well, when you screen these actors for your films, do you have these very like open-ended conversations with them? Try to get your emotion like imprinted on them? Is that what you kind of do?
Screen these actors? What do you mean? Sorry.
So like for the characters that you create for your films,
right.
And then you get these actors that want to portray those characters. How do you get them to see your vision or like feel what you feel, or
Right. I think I guess the way I go about, I haven't talked about this ever, or at least I think like I guess my relationship to acting and like casting and these kinds of things. I can never, for me, I cannot work like that where I'm like telling someone what to do or like how to feel or like, because then it just doesn't work. It's not tangible. It's not coming from themselves. So it's always, again, this kind of sounds so like, but it always has to kind of be a conversation, like where I'm meeting them halfway with the performance. So it's very important for me that whatever you see, you know, in film, it's like it's really something that came out of discussions, rehearsals, and like processing with those particular actors to get that performance. It's never really this like, here's what I want you to do, because it's I mean you'll kind of feel it when you watch someone perform that, you know, if it's not coming from something in their own life or like something they're going through, then it just won't be as convincing, at least from my eyes. But obviously, you know, like acting performance, that's something that's totally subjective. So I'm not saying that someone might not interpret something as more realistic or not, but in my experience, like it always has to be a shared experience, like working on the performance, like between, I mean, to put simply, like the director and the actor, where there has to be some consensus between the two of you. And usually that has come from like, you know, discussions about things that they've gone through in their life. Why this, you know, them building the character out of their own experiences.
Okay.
As opposed to me telling them, like, here's the character I made, and I don't know, I mean, it depends on the role too, but for this particular film, that's how and probably how I'm moving forward. I still think like that.
Okay.
Something like that. I don't know. I'm still figuring. I don't know. I don't know.
It's all right. But anyway, so with that being said, TJ, what are some current projects that you're like, you know, working on that you're really excited about or excited for?
So far in the future, I want to make a film about my mom.
Okay.
And her experiences coming to Chicago. That's something I've been really thinking through, and like kind of like I've been like properly started writing it, you know, like trying to assemble scenes. So that's something that I eventually want to make in Chicago. Again, drawing from these kind of like, this is you know, there are a lot of films about immigrants moving to foreign countries. So it's really interesting and a good challenge to work within that kind of paradigm, but also making it personal. I'm excited to hopefully, if my friends' projects pull through, excited about my friends' projects next year.
Okay.
I also like to work as a production designer, so like, you know, like props and like costuming. So I'm excited for some their projects. I don't know if I don't think I could talk about them, but but yeah, so like some production design projects. I'm really excited for that.
Ooh, that's gonna be awesome. So like production designing, as in like just making like props or like costumes and stuff like that, or like stage sets and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess for these particular ones, it'll probably be, because we're shooting on location. So it'll probably be like assembling props. Okay. Creating costumes, like.
So more of like a support team, pretty much. You're like working as.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really, that kind of collaboration I enjoy doing.
Is this out of your pocket, or how do you guys find money for this kind of stuff?
Yeah, so film industry, you have to apply for funds. So probably these are, I mean, I'm going kind of into the world eventually. These are, I mean, there's kind of like film funds around the world, try to help you find these things. So it's, that's not, I think, my friend just, number one rule in filmmaking, never use your own money.
I think that's the number one rule of like everything.
Any business.
Maybe you were that friend. But yeah, I think it depends on the scale. I mean, you know, it really depends, because I think that I guess it goes with anything, but you know, money can definitely affect the way someone makes a movie in weird ways, and that's like a whole other discussion. So, but I think with these particular projects, they're definitely, I cannot do any of this.
What do you, if you can, what do you mean by like weird ways how money affects filmmaking? Do you mean like they take like shortcuts and stuff, and then there goes the quality or something?
Yeah, I mean, like it's just, kind of just like a blunt example. I think it's less money, just more about scaling. So I mean, definitely a film where there's like 4 people on a crew. Where it's like, you know, let's say like it's director, a camera person, a sound person, and then like maybe a project manager. Like that's a very different process and working relationship you have with your environment, your actors, than you have with even like 20 people. You know? And I think like these very physical factors influence the ways in which you come to your scenes or your performances or even how you interact with the environment you're shooting in. Let alone, let's say, a crew of 120 and you're working with like a $2 million budget or something, you know? Then like I feel like there's these, actually, yeah, this is something I was talking to another filmmaker about, was like, you know, with more money comes more expectations and more, and that definitely can affect things in different ways, which can be good or bad. It's just like a very different dynamic. So I think more, I don't know if that makes sense. It's more like scaling. So I think,
Yeah, that makes
for
sense.
some people, like smaller is better, and I think, yeah, it with 4 people, you're less. How do I say this? Yeah, it's more intimate, and so that definitely has a different kind of vibe. If you're a giant crew and like, you know, you're taking up a whole restaurant, like there's a whole different vibe too. So
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if that makes sense. But I think, yeah, in terms of money, like if you have, you know, I feel like that's what happens. There's like different expectations, maybe some unspoken conditions.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not always, but
Right.
That's cool.
it's hard. That's something very relevant to talk about in like art spaces.
Money,
Especially,
right?
yeah, how do we continue to have support resources for people to keep doing things, and like what does that mean, you know, like when something scales up, you know, and how does that affect the things being created, communities that these things are coming out of. I think, yeah, those things that are very relevant.
I think it's also important for an artist to know that, I guess, to know their own value, because when it comes to this, like, so I know some people will be very desperate for resources, and like then they can get taken advantage of, because at that point they'll do anything, right, for resource. And it sucks because there are those sharks, if you will, that kind of prey on these kinds of new and upcoming artists, and they try to just stamp their name on everything, and they say that, oh yeah, we'll help you, but they also have their own, you know, hidden agenda, and they actually come off as like, oh, zero expectations, but little do they know, you know, they are going to expect something from you, and then later along your journey it's going to come and bite your ass, because you didn't think about it at the time. You were just like, I need the funds, I want to chase my dreams, and it's not entirely the artist's fault, but that's also something, another thing to think about.
Right. Wow, so scary.
Yeah, no, it is in this world, I mean, especially, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
everyone's looking out for themselves, but if you find yourself in the right bubble, everyone will try to build each other up.
Yeah, that's an ideal, right? Yeah,
That is an ideal, and kind of like
too.
going back to like what we're trying to do to escape capitalism. Yeah. But yeah, that's like what we're trying to do too, right, over here, on the podcast at least. I'm trying to like bridge communities together, right, so that people will hear about, like, you know, certain people like you, TJ, from Chicago, now in the Philippines, working on film, pursuing their passion. Hopefully coming back to film, you know, that one little feature of your mom and telling her story and stuff like that, right? And from there, right, it's like, that's dope, right? Because what if so we're trying to build communities, right? We're trying to connect people from the East Coast, West Coast, and hopefully from there, right, we'll move to like, you know, other countries and stuff like that around the world.
Yeah.
And we want to connect these people to the point where it's like, they don't have to go too far to try and find like a creative director, right? Or what you were doing again, the other film, what was it, the prop design team?
Oh yeah, like production design.
Yeah, production design team. Yeah, it's like we want to be able to kind of like make it more easily accessible, right? For instance, we don't want you to, like, you know, have to go from here, like in the Philippines, like, oh, where am I gonna find someone to do production design? You know, oh, I gotta look over, like, you know, in like India or like China or in the U.S. to find someone that can do it. Or like, oh wait, there's TJ over here in the Philippines doing production design, local, right? So we're trying to build a bigger community, bridging these gaps and everything like that. But
Yeah, I think it's very important.
yeah, so that way we want to make this like cutthroat-ish society more collaborative, you know, less cutthroat,
Just
but
more,
yeah, more
collaborative.
collaboration, you know,
Yeah,
because
collaboration. Yeah.
everyone's got like their own agenda, but at the same time, it's like you can still work with each other. Everyone can learn from each other. You know, no one's a godsend and like 100% perfect, right? If you are, then you're one of those lucky people, right?
Yeah.
But you know,
I definitely think like Chicago definitely has a lot of these growing, like like a lot of these, like with Luya,
yeah,
with like even the place I was working at, A Fire, and there's so many organizations, so many people, and I think it's it's very important that we all nourish one.
yeah, especially with like kind of what was that? You, Alex, and Late, and Ainsley connecting through. It was through A Fire that you connected with Alex.
Yeah, funnily enough, yeah.
Yeah,
It was an event.
that's so. And for those that don't know, A Fire was a local thing to Chicago, correct?
Yeah, so I love. Okay, so yeah, so IFIRE, which stands for the Alliance of Filipinos for Immigrant Rights and Empowerment. It's a Chicago-based immigrant rights nonprofit. It's actually the only Philippine immigrant rights community organization in the Midwest. So yeah, they're still kicking, growing. But yeah, that's where Alex went.
That's awesome. And then from there, you connected with Alex, and then his whole group with Subtitle Magazine, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And then from there, you guys are connecting and kind of starting your own thing. That was the Southeast Asian Film Festival, I believe.
Yes. It's actually I mean it's still within Subtitle as one of the
It's one of their events.
projects.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's where it just kind of began like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, so Subtitle, the Southeast Asian Short Film Festival, for this year, it's going to be on October 10th, 11th, and 12th. So on October 10th, it's actually going to be at DePaul, the CEM Theater. And then for October 11th and 12th, it's going to be on in Argyle, where High Bio was. And I'll put the addresses and extra information in the description later when this comes out.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah. So like with kind of like connecting with them and kind of helping them like establish or like kind of build up the whole film festival, like what did you primarily do with that? Did you like bring certain creatives on, or did you connect them with certain people that were based out in like Southeast Asia or the like?
Yeah. Honestly, it's been like none of us have made a film festival except for our curator.
Yeah.
So we were all kind of, and are all still doing everything, and we're kind of figuring it out as we go. So it wasn't like, I guess we have particular point people for specific things. Like Indies on the zine, and like other people are checking the film files. But I think like throughout the whole process, we were kind of shaping it and trying to figure out what we need to do as we went along. So I know. I mean, like, I guess I was like, I was coordinating, which is also what I was doing at A Fire.
Okay.
So I was just kind of like connect people to people. So in this case, my friend Elise, who was a curator, programmer, and producer. She was working at this other film festival called Sea Shorts, which is kind of what inspired this festival. And they're out in Kuala Lumpur. And they do similar things where they're a film festival that focuses on Southeast Asian short films. So I asked her, like, I met this person, Alex. They have this film festival, and I was like, do you want to would do something. I think it'd be so cool if Southeast Asian films, a lot of these films, can be screened in Chicago, because there's a huge community here, and I feel like a lot of people haven't seen Southeast Asian films. So yeah, I just connected them, and then I think I don't know. It's really hard to kind of say what, because we're all doing everything now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So how do you feel like especially being in the Philippines, kind of having this large time gap, for instance, like how do you feel in regards to kind of trying to work in this kind of distance? Do you feel like there's like some struggles or anything like that?
Yeah, honestly, I'm like kind of used to it already.
Okay.
It's not just, I don't know, because I think it's quite a experience. It's like I have family members in different countries. I have friends as well. So it's like, we're all connected through the internet. So
yeah.
I've already kind of like used to not really knowing what time anybody is at. But I guess for coordinating for meetings and things like that, like I just have to make sure that I'm calculating correctly, because I know that happened a few times.
Yeah.
Where I was a few hours off or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for those that don't know that are listening, what time is it over there in the Philippines right now?
It is 12:47 on Monday the 7th. I am in the future.
He's in the future, and we are at 11:47 in Chicago time in the past. So it's Sunday.
Depends on. Yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, as we're wrapping up, real quick, let's reiterate what we like to do with our guests. We like to ask them what kind of advice they would give for the youngins, or so to speak, the people that are up and coming. So real quick, TJ, what would you like to leave with them today?
Our youngins. Wait, who are our youngins?
So pretty much, it's not necessarily like youngins.
Yeah, we're all youngins.
So
for ourselves.
Oh my god. So pretty much, what piece of advice would you leave our audience, being it like they're professionals in a field that they're currently not satisfied with, individuals that are currently pursuing their hopes and dreams or their goals in life and their passion, and people that are just kind of on that fence, right, ready to jump, but they're just not sure yet, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of advice would you give these individuals, our listeners?
Yeah. So I won't repeat what I said earlier. Okay. I'll say something that I think I heard. Can't remember where I heard it from, but I heard this somewhere, and it was to listen to not the loud voice inside you, but that really, really quiet voice that doesn't talk too much and probably doesn't say a lot.
So the voice that gets bullied by your louder voice.
I mean, I'm not making assumptions about the dynamics that are happening inside.
Yeah.
But just I don't know. Maybe like this spoke to just me. Maybe it doesn't speak to anybody else.
Yeah.
Maybe we should call DCFS inside that voice.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I think that's listen to the quiet voice.
Yeah, for sure.
I
like that. Okay. And then TJ, do you have any like social media you want to plug? Anything the audience should check out?
Yes. So actually, other than the film festival, which they plugged, I also wanted to plug. There's also another event happening on October 12th, Saturday, which is by a fire, and this is our Bayanihan show. This is a show where we're gonna have intergenerational Filipinx community members perform, and it's also gonna be a mental health fair where we're gonna have resources for people to explore different things about mental health and kind of break these kinds of stigmas that are still prevalent in many communities. So that's going to be happening on October 12th. It's also this Saturday at Northside College Prep.
Okay.
And it's going to be the same time, but I really encourage people to go to that as well. The doors open at 6:30. The mental health fair will be from 6 to 8:30, and the talent show will be from 7 to 9. So yeah, and it's completely free to come. There's a suggested donation of $5, where you'll get 6 raffle tickets And they're still looking, if you still want to sponsor, if you want to volunteer, I highly encourage you to support this organization. We're doing a lot of great work, especially with Filipinx community, but even broader than that, fighting mental health stigmas, because that's something that's still very huge, I think, in our community.
It is definitely very huge in our community. All right.
So that's all I wanted to plug.
For sure.
And then there's 2 other days for the film, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you can check the films out on our website because there's really a wide selection. I think each film is saying a lot. Like, I don't know. I'm really excited for
And what was this website for our listeners to access the film?
You check. I always get this wrong.
You can double check it.
Because there's another. Okay, yeah. So it's subtitlefilmfest.com.
Subtitlefilmfest.com.
Yes.
Got it.
And that has all the information. If you want to donate to our GoFundMe, all of the funds will go towards the filmmakers because there's screening fees and also to just putting on this film festival.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to, the Bayanihan show for A-Fire also has a Facebook event page that you could look through. If you just search A-Fire Chicago on Facebook, you can find more information.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for being the first episode on our second season, TJ.
Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is oh gosh. So much.
No, you're good. You're
This,
good.
right?
No, raw. Just kidding.
It's all raw. Okay.
We probably will, but we're gonna edit it a little bit, so don't
Yeah.
you worry about that. But with that said, TJ, thank you for coming on to the Eating Cast.
Thank you for having me.
It was our pleasure to host you.
This is fun. I was really nervous at first.
Oh no,
Yeah.
you're fine. And to our listeners, thank you for listening, and we will dine with you on the next one. Take care.
Bye.
Good morning and good night.
Good morning and good night. Very perfect.
Yes.
For this.